I really didn't want to make this video. My next two videos that I had planned were the review of the November roster, which would have been released in the coming week or two. And then I was going to do my second version of predicting the U.S. men's national team 2022 Qatar World Cup roster. I am not going to make that video as it stands right now because after the 2-0 loss to Canada last night, I am very uncertain if this team under this coach is going to qualify for the World Cup. This was as embarrassing, as lackadaisical as a performance as I can remember. I mean, even going back to Dave Sarakin's era when we were able to just grit out, results against Mexico and France, and had our moments against the likes of Colombia and even England for a portion of that friendly. Nothing under this tenure has really got me to a point where I trust the process that's going on right now. And last night was just emblematic, and it really just exemplified all the negative aspects of this tenure. I'm not one to call for a person's job, and I'm not going to in this video. I'm not going to call for Greg Berhalter's job in this video. But if you look at the results, and if you just look at the product, if you used your own eyes to watch that 90 plus minutes of soccer last night, you would think that Canada is the 21st ranked team in the world and we are the 74th ranked team in the world. It was that bad. You can look at the individual players themselves, and Christian Pulisic didn't have a good game. Weston McKennie had a very, very poor game. Josh Sargent couldn't find himself in this game. The only few guys that I would actually say had good games. Jordan Morris, on rewatching this game, I didn't make this video last night kind of on like a jerk reaction. I rewatched it this morning. Jordan Morris was very good. Aaron Lawn and even Tim Ream at times were able to put out some fires. And Zach Steffen is a very talented shot-stopping goalkeeper. That's it. And, Michael Bradley is a net neutral player. And even, I'll tell you this, rewatching that game, and I know Christian Rodin had some howlers of some moments. Same thing with Daniel Lavitz last night. Those guys who people are scapegoating this morning, you rewatching that game, they didn't have as many terrible moments as you might remember. But the thing is, those two guys, okay, and even we look at the guys that didn't get that much action. Will Trapp didn't play this window. Jazzy Zardes only played in the final, desperation minutes of this game after we pulled Chris and Canada scored a goal. Those guys, at their best, are not good enough. Flat out, nail in the coffin. There's no other way to put it. And I'm not saying that as a person who has an agenda against MLS. There's plenty of talent on this team from the MLS. Aaron Lawn is very talented, plays in the MLS. Same with Reggie Cannon and Nick Lima on this team. Jackson Ewell in the minutes he was on. We didn't see Seb Leggett this window, but I thought we should have. Jordan Morris has arguably been our best player in the men's national team since he's kind of reemerged on the scene. Paul Arriola, does his part. But this core of, the group has been letting this team down exponentially, and last night just brought it all up to the surface, and we just had as piss poor of a performance as I can remember. I tweeted out that it was the worst feeling since Cuba 2 years ago. There's no other way to put it into words. We're now looking down the barrel at if we don't win our group in CONCACAF Nations League, which will beat Cuba in the Cayman Islands in November, we're going to have to get a fairly good result against Canada to move out of this group. If we don't win this group, we're not playing a competitive match again. Again, this is presuming that we're not invited to Copa America in South America, which that's always dicey. If that doesn't happen, our next competitive match after those two games is World Cup qualifying, which could be against Mexico. It could be away at Costa Rica. It could be away at Canada, the team that really just put it to us. And I think, what really irked me about, this loss to Canada is the way that they did it was so familiar in that they just put their heads down, their midfield and especially their back line played as a group as opposed to playing individually. They funneled play through their best player, Alphonso Davies, and used some of their tertiary talent like Scott Arfield and Jonathan David to make stuff happen. They played us and they beat us in a fashion that the U.S. has been so familiar with that just feels devoid and lost from this team currently. This U.S. team doesn't have a pulse, and that's why losing to that Canada team, who played like we've played for so long, is just that much more disheartening. Again, I'm not calling for Greg Berhalter's job right now. It's a long, tenuous, it's a hard job that Greg Berhalter has, but he's got to do better with it than he's doing right now. You cannot lose to Canada for the first time in over 30 years. They've scored 1 goal in the last, 10, 12 matches that we've played against them? I understand that Canada is supposedly on the up and up, and they had a lot of talent out there, but we made some players that, even in MLS, guys like Derek Cornelius, Kamal Miller, Liam Frazier, they outplayed us significantly last night. I mean, it's tough to make this video because of just how poor the collective effort was from the United States. And Greg Berhalter goes on about, we're not going to judge this team by one game and that he was disappointed in the effort from this group. When the group as a whole, when players who we know have heart, Weston McKennie, Paul Arriola, Aaron Long, even guys that aren't exactly especially talented, like Christian Roldan, they all have heart. They play with a passion at the club level. We're not seeing that at the national team level. And I'm not one to judge the entirety of the national team just based on the feel that they give off. We just need, if we're going to play this kind of stone cold, steel-oriented offense where we're going to move it around, we're going to play defense a little more passively, we're going to let the opposing team make the mistakes, we're just going to stay solid. If we're going to do that, let's win some damn games. Let's beat the teams that we are supposed to beat, like the 74th ranked team in the world, a team that is 1 spot behind Bolivia. I know and I understand that this is the first road game that Greg Berhalter's men's national team went to go play. It's the shortest trip that you're going to get as a national team ever. How are we going to play when we have to go face teams that have similar quality like Jamaica on the road, when we have to travel overseas via charter plane? That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking down the barrel at a team that, if it gets into World Cup qualifying, is going to be in a very similar situation to where it was with Jurgen Klinsmann, where 2 games into qualifying, you have such a poor result that you need to go in a different direction. I don't want that to be the case. I want to still believe that, Greg Berhalter has the means to be a men's national team head coach for us, but this is the least inspired and, least joyous I felt about being a supporter of this team in a while. You want to look at just things that they could have done differently. The one thing that is just jarring to me is Brendan Aronson. Brendan Aronson was having, some good performances with the U23s. We pull him up. We don't dress him a single time. And while he's here, Richie Ledesma gets caught up to the U23s. He had 2 assists and a goal in 45 minutes last night. Brendan Aronson may have lost his U23 job just by being part of the senior team. The mismanagement from these youth teams to the senior team is baffling at this point. And guys that even on, the outskirts, not able to perform at youth levels, like Dwayne Holmes, Anthony Robinson's still kind of on the fence. He's the guy that could still play for the U23s. But this senior team has just been so poorly managed in terms of when we actually decide on the players that we're bringing in. We're deciding that we need a stopgap player like Daniel Lovitz at left back, and we're deciding that we need Christian Roldan, and we need Corey Baird, and we need Jazzy Zardes. Okay, those guys lack the talent to play at an international level. Let's then not funnel our system through those players. I'm not even a proponent, I'm not even a fan of Christian Pulisic playing in the midfield. But when the alternative is playing a midfield of Weston McKennie, Christian Roldan, and Michael Bradley, and leaving a guy like Paul Arriola on the bench, and I'm not even a big fan of him, but leaving a guy like Tyler Boyd on the bench, it's baffling to me, the mismanagement of this team. Benching a guy like Reggie Cannon, who's been in a great battle with Nick Lima for DeAndre Yedlin, who frankly was awful last night. Didn't get anything going up the flank. Defensively wasn't covering back post. This is me in a cooled off state. This is me after rewatching the game, watching it just from a neutral perspective. The one feeling that I hate as a fan, and I hate people who feel this way, is wanting to see this team fail in order to get the coach out. I'm never a proponent of that. And, regardless of where in the situation the men's national team is, I'm always going to support this team. But last night, I couldn't help but just watch Canada and think, that's a team that has a direction. That's a team that has its young players in order. It has its select veterans in order, that has a future. And I almost subconsciously throughout watching last night's game felt that Canada deserved that win and was almost feeling a pull towards wanting them to win that game. If it's gotten to the point for me where that's happening with our senior program, then I think Greg Berhalter's job should be heavily looked at, within the federation itself. And that, the entirety of, Jay Berhalter being the guy that would have to make that decision or accept that decision from Ernie Stewart, that's its own issue. The nepotism in U.S. soccer, it has been well documented. As far as what we can do for November, we're going to have to, beat Canada, obviously, in Orlando. As far as changes, if we can get Tyler Adams healthy, plug him in the midfield. I don't care if it means, putting Christian Roldan on the bench. I think it would be, ideal to put Christian Roldan on the bench or play him at the 6. Tim Weah, hopefully he gets back from injury. We can replace him for Corey Baird. Miles Robinson, we'll see if he's healthy. Serginho Dest, what about that performance last night is going to tell Serginho Dest to come play for this national team? I don't know, but hopefully he's on board with this program. It's blind hope right now. In my previous videos, I was able to, kind of formulate some tangible hope out of what we saw from the previous games and the roster selections themselves. We have Zach Steffen, we have Aaron Long, we have Weston McKennie at times. We have Christian Pulisic. I maybe would throw Jordan Morris into that situation, and Josh Sargent is very talented. But that's it. That's a core of players that I feel good about. There's some guys like Seb Leggett and Reggie Cannon and Nick Lima that or Matt Miazga as well, that I feel positive about, and they should be on this roster. But everybody else, their heads might and possibly should be on the chopping block for a performance like this. We need new blood in this team. It's not a question anymore. It's going to cost Greg Berhalter his job if it's not done. If he, runs back a roster similar to this in November, or maybe not similar to this, but a roster nearly identical to this in November, there's just going to be too much pressure from U.S. soccer and there might be too much pressure as is right now. I mean, we'll see in the coming week or two. I usually try and leave this on a positive note. I'm not this time. I'll see you back for the November roster overview. Have a nice day.